For example, how would you stimulate somebody with normal FSH, normal AMH, normal antral follicular count with a BMI of 25 versus with a BMI of 35?
I think that's a very, very pertinent question. In fact, there is some limited evidence that obese women tend to have lower AMH levels than compared to those with normal BMI. Of course, that variable has to be taken into consideration, and the dose has to be modified or increased according to the BMI, because it is a very important variable. This talk was generally meant for people with normal BMI and regularly cycling women, but of course that is a variable which will influence the response.
Just a comment. In morbidly obese patients, really the ideal treatment is for them to lose weight before getting pregnant, but that's not always practical. And quite often with the subcutaneous injections in the abdomen or the thigh, that's where most of the fat is. So especially those who will not respond, we will sometimes go to bigger needle in the deltoid region, and they will then respond.
Deltoid, intramuscular?
A very good talk, Padma. Do you ever come across reports from two labs, one saying AMH of say 2.5, the other saying AMH of say 1.6? How do you deal with such a situation?
I think, this is... until recently, there were two assays available. So it depended on which assay was being used, whether it was from Beckman-Coulter or whether it was DSL. Now, anyway, there is only one assay officially available all over the world, Beckman-Coulter Gen 2. So, if the report was maybe a year ago, then we have to see which one was that, because Beckman-Coulter Gen 1 usually gave a higher value. So we had to predict poor ovarian response at a higher value. But now that we have only Gen 2 assay, that problem should not be there. And the next variable comes into picture, because it's it's a semi-automatic test. And it's a very laborious test. It takes about 6 hours to complete one test. And ideally, it should be done in batches, large batches. So, various factors like which lab it is, whether they are doing in batches, whether they're giving a daily report on individual tests, all these things need to be taken into consideration to decide which one we would rely on.
Can we please go back to your slide showing the AMH levels? What I'd like to point out in this slide is when you're looking at this AMH level, look at the range. It's wide. So not many people, at least I didn't know it for the last couple of years, but in a patient, if you measure AMH levels daily,
there is,
days,
the variation is...
There is a wide variation. So the same patient whose level is 1.2 today, tomorrow it may be 0.9, the day after tomorrow it may be 0.6, and then again go to 1.2. So it's very important not to make a diagnosis just based on an AMH level alone. You have to look at the age, the ovarian volume, antral follicular count, previous response, the weight, and get a composite picture rather than just labeling a patient as a normal or low responder based on one blood drop or an AMH level.
I think we don't yet have a single test which would answer all our questions. It's a panel of parameters we need to look at and then predict whether the response is going to be normal or inadequate or excessive.
Yes, Libby from Tunisia. So most of paper the last year compared AMH to AFC and showed that they are comparable.
Yes.
That in all the points they are comparable. You think that we should continue monitoring AMH?
I think, AMH has two important values. Like we said, we don't have a single test which is going to give us the diagnosis of how the ovarian response is going to be. So if we are encountering very low ovarian volume, very low antral follicle count, the diagnosis could be substantiated by doing the AMH, and also in monitoring a woman's ovarian reserve, particularly in those who want to delay conception. It can be a very important tool. No other test as yet has shown such variation very early on in a woman's life. There are distinct situations where somebody wants to delay childbearing and she is entering into her 30s and late 30s, and also those who have had young cancer survivors, and also as a combination of other markers, it has a definite role.
That regarding the improved responsiveness, your improved value of AMH, you know, once AMH goes down, as per whatever studies we have seen, that AMH has a role in inhibition of from primordial follicle pools to preantral, and then at the second level at the FSH level. So the moment AMH goes down, all the primordial pool suddenly gets into the preantral stage and
Accelerated.
becomes sensitive. Growing follicles suddenly become sensitive to FSH, and we exhaust our primordial reserve, whatever we have. So I think there are only a few subset of patients where you can achieve improvement in AMH level use. Otherwise, once AMH is going down, I hope patient will be losing her primordial pool at in a very short span of time. So there has to be only some people. So we should not be applying this thing again and again on a patient.
No.
To put her on different type of regimes or whatever in an expectation that she might be able to improve her AMH.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comment was specifically in a subgroup of
Only
obese
a
women.
small obese
I mean,
women,
otherwise
yes.
probably
Otherwise,
with normal
yeah.
ovarian reserve. So that has to be taken in that context.
Exactly.